All right. Hey, everybody. I'm Dr. Nicole Bonner, and welcome to Taproot Conversations.
Hey, this is Dr. John D'Ambrosio, and I am here with you as well. And we are lucky enough to have Dr. Laura Coleman with us today. Laura, introduce yourself.
Hi, everybody. I'm Laura Coleman. I practice in Tennessee, outside of Nashville.
Great. And I believe you went to school at Life?
I did. I graduated in 2012.
Okay, great. And what was your experience like at school?
Well, I had quite the experience. I had my son in between second and third quarter and took him with me to all my classes and did the mom thing, drove the dutiful 3 hours a day and with an infant and all that. So it was definitely a different experience than what I'd say most students are experiencing nowadays.
Wow, 3 hours a day.
Yeah, through Atlanta traffic, it was great. I live 70 miles from school.
Wow.
Yeah.
Can you, because I know there are, I think this is such a great place to start because you've had such a unique experience in chiropractic school and becoming a mom. Can you share a little bit of that experience before we move on to other questions? Because I know as a female chiropractor, a lot of female chiropractic students out there that, we have a different, sorry, John, but we have like a little bit of a different circumstance than you guys, it's a little bit different for us. So what, can you speak to that, Laura, about, how was your experience being a mom and going through chiropractic school? What were some of the things that maybe were different from other students? And, if there's other women out there that are having children during chiropractic school, what type of advice would you give them?
Oh, that's tough. So it was exceptional in a lot of ways. I had a very unique opportunity to rely on my village. I didn't have family and friends there until I moved there, and that's when I created my own family. By the grace of God, these, other students that had no reason to have to help me that decided to help me. I had people covering my labs for me. And if I had finals and tests, they would say, when can we take Kyle? And I mean, everybody knew me as Kyle's mom, nobody knew my name, I swear, but it really was a community effort to keep that kid alive and to keep me in school. Even the teachers were really great to, we'd be taking a quiz and sometimes the teacher would come and pick up Kyle and walk around with him. His first crawling was in Dr. Osenjak's classroom. He went crawling down the aisleway. I mean, it was crazy. I think the biggest thing I learned was learning to ask for help and be able to trust and rely on other people to help me. My husband was always gone. He was in the Army at the time. He was deployed the majority of my pregnancy. And then he had to go back when my son was, less than 2 weeks old. He had to go back for another 6 months. Wow. So due to his career, I definitely was, on my own as far as that was concerned. He was gone a lot, even after the deployments. I don't know how I did it, to be honest with you. I really couldn't have done it without, my friends, obviously. It was hard. And balancing, I need to study, I need to take care of my kid, I mean, a lot of my housework went undone. I cloth diapered, so I had to do laundry, but dishes sat in the sink or dinner didn't get made, So a lot of it was, okay, this is priority. Studying for orthopedics, practical that I have, is a priority above, maybe sweeping the floor. Yeah. So it was very humbling in a lot of ways, but gratifying. It kept me moving forward. You know, I probably would have been prone to shenanigans more if I hadn't have been held accountable. You know, everybody was wondering, you know, how am I going to do this? How are you going to do this? And I did. So I don't know that I'd recommend it. You know, and Kyle's my biggest joy, you know. I mean, he needed to come when he needed to come, and there's a reason for it. But I don't know how I did it. Really don't.
That's great that you did. And I know, you know, we had gone to 2 years ago, Life CE together, and all the teachers knew you. I mean, you had relationships with everybody. It wasn't like you were just a face in the crowd. You really stood out to them, and you went over and you would talk to all of them. And I thought that was great, because not many people did that. You saw the teachers standing by themselves, and as soon as you walked in, their eyes would light up and you'd go over and talk to them and share. So you could tell it was a big part of your life, but also part of their lives as well.
I think it was neat for them to watch Kyle grow up. And you know, they really reached out to me in second quarter, and one of my teachers, he doesn't work there anymore, but he's like, you're not going to make it. and I was like, oh, I don't like that.
That's encouraging.
Yeah. I mean, he's the biochem teacher, and he's like, you are setting yourself up for failure. And I hope you realize that. So I took that as a challenge to, you know, nobody's going to tell me I'm going to fail. So, you know, I'm a little bit bullheaded in that regard. So I set up, we spent a lot of the time during lectures out in the hallway, and I set up a baby monitor, and I put the baby monitor in by the professor, and then the other end out in the hallway, so that Kyle could play and, you know, whatever. And he didn't disturb the class, but I could still hear what was going on, take notes. So when he saw me do that, he's like, oh, okay, you know, here's some humble pie, you know. But he was one of my bigger supporters. You know, he is always telling me to go back to life, to you know, reach out and support people as much as possible. So that's part of the reason why I do.
Well, you know, I'm going to skip over some questions that we had lined up, because you talk about a challenge when he had told you that you're not going to succeed. And that kind of drove you. I think that also drove you into successor practice now, based on the associateship you had. So if you want to go into that, I think that's important.
Yeah. So when I moved to this town, I mean, it's all good old boys. I think there's one other female chiropractor in town, and that's it. It's good old boys. If you didn't grow up here, or if you didn't know somebody who did, you're not going to make it. I got told multiple times, you're never going to make it in this town. And I'm tiny, you know, I'm short, I'm hobbit height. So everybody looks at me and says, oh, you can't do this. You know, let me do this, little girl. So I was like, okay. And then one guy even said, you're not going to make it in this town. And then he put an x-ray up on the view box and said, what is that? I said, that's rider's bone. And so this guy he sat there and insulted me, and then asked my opinion on something. It was really comical. So I definitely used that fuel to be like, I will make it here. I will be able to be a mom and do the things that I love, and I will make it. So that was part of it. So I wasn't an associate. I was independent contractor.
Okay.
Something that, you know, I would have come out of school and started a practice. I was scared. The reason I didn't was because I didn't want to go into debt. And I also didn't think that we were going to be here more than 3 years, right? So I said, I can do anything for 2 years, 3 years, whatever. I couldn't do that for more than a year.
Wow.
It was just not for me at all. But it really solidified. I've worked in a lot of offices, and I've learned through the years, even before I went into chiropractic school, what I did want to do and what I didn't want to do. And for me, that was my biggest takeaway from that independent contractor relationship was, I am not doing any of this. is wrong for me, is not wrong for them, is wrong for me. So, and it gave me the nerve to just open up my own place.
Nice. So Laura, can we take a step back real quick for students that are out there watching this? They may not know the difference between, or the different options that people have between associateships and becoming an independent contractor. Can you, I know I'm going outside of the questions a little bit, but can we talk about that for the students to kind of just share the difference between what's the difference between becoming an associate and becoming an independent contractor?
So from what I understand, depending on what state you're in, there are certain legal boundaries as far as what's considered independent contractor and what's considered an employee. My understanding for here in Tennessee, independent contractor, I work for myself. I have my business inside of their business. I'm still representing them, in some fashion because I'm working in their underneath their shingle, right?
Right. And you're still branded under them.
Correct.
Kind of take on their brand, right? Okay.
Yeah. Depending on what your contract says and if everybody follows it, you can have a really decent situation there. What I did was I paid 40% of every dollar I made to the people that had me as an IC. And then that offsets the cost for them, obviously, but it also makes it so that you can practice without a whole bunch of upfront costs. To me, that was winning, Some independent contractors share patients with their chiropractor that they're working with or whatever. I did not share patients. We were completely separate. Like I had my own tax ID number, all that stuff. So I really pretty much ran my business inside his practice.
Got it. And then when you would process patients under your case, it's like you would get a new patient, they would go through the new patient process, and then they were your patient, you adjusted them and nobody else did.
Typically, yes. There's a couple of times that he filled in for me and I filled in for him. He had, had a little boy and everything. So, but for the most part, it was my patient, my money, except for the fee that I paid him, basically. Yeah.
Was there a cap on that fee? So 40% up to a certain point, or was it just unlimited? You could see 1,000 people and it's still 40%.
Yeah. So I wanted, with negotiations, it's business negotiations are always a little heartbreaking. And sometimes you lose friends over it. I wanted it to be a certain point. If I were to do it again, I would have insisted more. I did insist, but of course, kind of was like, meh, this is kind of a great opportunity. And it really was, in a lot of ways, got my feet wet. And it was something that I knew I could get out of if I needed to, because we would be moving. So if I were to do it, I would definitely say up until this point, and then no mas, this is it.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. Thank you for sharing that and clarifying. And then if for the students out there, because I get this question a lot, like a lot of students ask me, what's the difference between independent contractors, associates, which way do I go? Like an associate, just to clarify for the students that may be watching, is you're part of that chiropractor's business. So you're actually, the patients that you bring in are the office's patients, and you're an employee of the office, versus like Laura being an independent contractor. She was really an employee for herself.
Right.
So I just wanted to clarify that for students, because I get that question a lot.
Okay.
Cool.
So you practice in an area, it's like a military town, so it's very transient population. That's something that chiropractors are always, hi dog.
There's that mythical creature coming to kill me right now. Hey.
So you always have that leaky bucket syndrome, not because of the way you practice, just because the population, people are getting transferred in and out. How do you deal with that and build such a big, you have a high volume practice, you see a lot of people, despite the transient population? How do you make that work?
I am constantly rebuilding. It's exhausting. The way that I run my practice is 100% word of mouth. But what you can't get around the fact that military members are so well connected worldwide. So say I'm incoming into a post, no matter where I am, I can say, I need recommendations on schools, nannies, whatever, where to buy a car, what physician I should use. And there are networks there.
Okay.
I think the thing that really helps me is that there's a constant influx, just like there's a constant outflux, unfortunately.
Mm-hmm.
But this is a really fertile area. So since I specialize, I have extra training in pregnant women and babies. I tend to get a lot of those families that way, which is nice.
Absolutely.
So Laura, can you tell us a little bit about your practice? Because this is, I think, one of the first time I'm ever meeting you. I think we've met before, maybe a passing or something like that, but tell us about your practice and what types of patients you see, and tell us a little bit about taking care of moms and children.
So I see about, last time I did the stats, it was about 65% of my practice is babies, kids, pregnant moms. It might be a little bit different now. I do see on non-pregnant people and males, and I don't most of the time I don't see a lot of grandparents. It's typically people that are in the stages of growing their families. I think it's really unique because most chiropractors sit there and say, how do you get these kids under care? Well, for me, I get the kids under care. It's the parents that I'm like chomping at the bit. I was like, what is your problem? You're bringing me your baby. You're stressed out because you're stressed out. Come back. You need to be treated too. So some of it is in reverse as far as that's concerned. And a lot of practices, they say, oh, I get the dad first, or I get the mom, and then I get the baby. It's almost always opposite for me, unless I took care of mom while she was pregnant. I get my new families through the baby.
Wow.
Which is kind of cool, and
Yeah.
but also challenging in a lot of ways because the babies don't have their own funds, so
Right.
they can't turn around and tell mom, hey, don't worry about it, I've got you covered, right? So so anyway, so it's very unique in that regard. I'm the only chiropractor in there, but I also have a massage therapist that's been with me for like 4 years, something like that. She rents space. So we do co-manage as far as that is concerned. I basically, I don't want to say just adjust. I basically adjust, and that's it. The majority of my actual modalities, the only thing I do is not ultrasound, cold laser. And I do some soft tissue mobilization, but my staff does that. So I am the only person obviously adjusting, but that's all I'm doing. I'm not dealing with anything else. I'm just coming in, cracking some bad jokes, cracking backs, leaving, done. No, but it makes it so that these people, their time is valued. I'm coming in, I'm coming in on time. They're able to get out and do the things that they need to do. I mean, most of these moms have a laundry list of stuff that they've got to get done that they should have gotten done, like a month ago. So that's what we do, is we really try to be efficient with the staff and I to come in, take care of what they need. They feel heard. We adjust them. They're happy. They go about their way.
And that's something that's really interesting about the way you practice, because you're very caring, you're very thorough, but your visits are so quick, and you ensure that with things like timers, headsets. Could you go into that? Because I think the way you've streamlined things to make sure you're at your most efficient is amazing.
So you know how everybody talks about Chick-fil-A, you know, you go to Chick-fil-A and there's not a second wasted. They walk up to you, they get you addressed, they get your order, and they have it out, right? They're the most efficient, and I don't want to equate myself with fast food, but they're the most efficient experience you can get, right?
Mhm.
Through the drive-through, right?
Mhm.
So my whole goal is, you know, my time's valuable. The worst thing that I could do as a human being is sit there and wait. It drives me up the wall. So anytime I see somebody waiting, I'm like, there's something wrong. What are we doing wrong? You know? So the way we do it is they come in, they sign in. Of course, now with COVID stuff, we're taking temperatures and having them fill out an extra form. But then most of the time, the reception area is empty. It's very rare that I have people in the reception area. They're moved. I have 3 adjustment rooms. They're moved in a sequence of adjustment rooms. So the 3rd room is for new patients, and if we're doing any modalities for the most part. So I mainly operate in between room 1 and room 2, and I kind of just mindlessly back and forth in between those rooms until one of my CAs say, "Hey, idiot, go go to 3." So we have a whiteboard on the door, and it says their first name, and it tells me, okay, so I'm seeing the whole family. So it's their Smith times 4, then I know I'm seeing everybody. If it just says Jacqueline, then I know I'm only seeing Jacqueline, right? So I walk in, I'm not messing around with, well, who's being seen and what's going on and twiddling my thumbs. I'm walking in, they hit the timer when they load the room. So I know how many minutes Jacqueline's been in there. So Jacqueline's been in there for 2 minutes. Okay, great. I come in, I hit the timer because we have a timer 1 and timer 2 on each door. I hit the timer. I go in, take care of Jacqueline. When I come out, I hit the timer again. And then when that room is empty, that timer is cleared. So I know how long each room was occupied. I know if there's lingerers, you know, well, Jacqueline likes to sit there and twiddle her thumbs and stare at the ceiling, you know, then we know we need to move Jacqueline out, right? So we get to know their patterns that way. Also, I can sit there and say, you know, I spent a lot of time with her and maybe she needs that extra time. So we need to schedule her differently. So sometimes it does kind of help us negate who we need to schedule at a different interval, who we need to put at an end of a shift or in the beginning of the shift, that sort of thing too. So it kind of helps us manage people a little bit better. But it also helps me with the flow. And then the headsets are just communication between the staff. I don't wear one anymore. I used to, but I was so busy listening to them talk about whatever it is they had to talk about that I couldn't do it. It was just too much. So the ladies communicate. Okay, so Stephanie needs a note for work and it needs to say blah, 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 you know, whatever. So then they can communicate with one another. And then also if front desk is like, you know, there's this person here and they really are insisting on talking to Dr. Laura. It's not a thing of me coming out and saying, no, I'm not talking to you right now, man, go, you know. It's a thing of, I spoke with her. She's, you know, indisposed at this time and you can, you know, kick rocks, man, because you're probably trying to sell something, right? So there's a lot of that, like honoring that space, you know, with me and the patients, but also making sure that they feel loved and feeling better and, you know, get the adjustments that they need, but also getting them on with their day, getting them out, doing the things that they need to do.
Love it.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that, because talking to students too, like I notice a lot more students kind of get hung up on just spending more time with patients. And I think it's important. I think your perspective that you shared is very important for students to hear, for sure.
Oh boy. Hi, Doug. Thanks for the ammo. Okay. People just walk in my house. I'm sitting there wondering what's going on. Okay.
Did he really deliver ammo?
Yes.
Nice.
So as a student, you know, we're not shown that, you know, we're not shown how to manage a practice. And that's when we're supposed to learn that is in peak, right? That's not enough time. And especially if you peak in the same office, well, what are you going to do? You're going to do exactly what that office does because you don't know any better, right? And then it's going to be forced. It's going to be wrong for you, right? Because you don't know any better and you don't have the kahunas to go out there and say, let's reinvent this. Let's do something different. And that's why I think it's so important, even as a student, even before being a student, going in these offices, working. I mean, I worked in 2 very successful offices and I learned so much in their offices. And I do a lot of things that those doctors did because it worked. I mean, they were amazing. They are amazing doctors. And so I did 2 different peak doctors. So I was already exposed to 4 offices that way.
Nice.
Intimately, exposed into the daily workings. So I mean, I learned a lot from just doing that. And even if it's volunteering your time, say, hey, doc, I just want to come shadow you, come shadow. I have usually about twice a year, I have somebody come in and shadow me. And I love it, because it gives me an opportunity to help.
Yeah. That's one of the things that I teach my students that I'm working with is to just get out and visit as many practices as you possibly can and learn what you like and learn what you don't like.
And just because it works for Dr. Smith, it's going to work for you. I know practice management companies hate this, but every practice is different.
Yep.
And just because Dr. Blue says, I do it this way, it doesn't mean that that's the only way you can do it. Yep. Like you talk about dress code a lot, I'm kind of going off, your scheduled course here, but dress code, people say, well, what should I wear? What should I wear? What should I wear? I was taught you look nicer than your best dressed patients. I am sorry. Have you seen the infants that are born nowadays? Those little girls with the giant bows and the big ruffle butts, I can't look better than them. There's no way. I'm already setting myself up for failure. So here I am. I feel most genuine and comfortable because I'm crawling around on the flipping floor, playing with babies, and I'm relatable this way, So when we get hung up in the small stuff, we really get lost. We lose our course. So looking at the big picture, making yourself relatable, making your practice welcoming, do what works for you. And that's the big answer.
Absolutely.
Yeah. That's awesome advice.
Thanks.
This is a good one. How important do you find it to attend things now that you've graduated to then go back to things like a Mile High, Berkshire's event, things like that, to kind of stay connected and maybe even learn new things? I don't know how many new things you actually learn at those events, but you're socializing, you're around like-minded people. How important is that, do you feel?
I always learn at each event. The learning part of it is a small part for me. The biggest part that I do, the reason why I go to these events is support. I need that support and I need to give that support. I feel better giving, So if I usually do a monetary gift, and I usually pick some sort of, association or some cause that I believe in, and I give them money. I show up and I rub elbows with these giants of chiropractic, and I just somehow go, hi, I'm going to be your friend. Let me give you money. And so not only do they say, okay, we like her, she's crazy, but B, they say, oh, wow, she supports us. So it keeps you in the know of what's going on and where you want to focus your efforts as far as chiropractic and as how you want to do things, right? Then also outside of that, they have these great speakers that really ignite the flame in you again. I mean, how many people right now are burnt out? I was so burnt out in school. I don't even know how I lived. I cried. 5th quarter, I cried 70 miles in and 70 miles home. I mean, I was a miserable human being. So, and people in practice are the same way. You know, I have friends that, you know, aren't even practicing that I went to school with, and they're super smart people. They will never practice again because they got so burnt out. So part of it is lifting us up as a society, or as a profession, but B, staying very much on the cusp of cutting edge things. And then, of course, also just being there, being around your friends and the people you love. You know, like 2020 has been terrible because I haven't seen any of my friends. You know, this is the only time I see people, all my friends from chiropractic, is during these seminars, especially worldwide. So the camaraderie is a big part of why I go. Of course, the content is amazing. Like I said, I always learn. I always say, oh, maybe I could add that, or maybe I could do this. And I always come back with action steps and I bring my staff to a lot of them, you know. It's team building for them. They see me, oh, wow, this is why she does it. And this is great. And this is kind of a big deal. And, you know, and then they feel special too, you know, which is really important.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And you stay connected even on an international level. You're involved with Australia, right?
I am ASRF. So I do. So I help decide whether or not people get money for their grants. So I also try to do research in my office too. And I've been published two times or three times. I can't remember. They're working on another one right now. So I think this is my third. So yeah, I'm really big in making sure that we have the information that we need available to us too. But the international level is huge because even, you know, with the military, although we don't typically deploy to Australia or move to Australia as military members, it's nice to say, oh, I know somebody in Brazil, you know, and maybe they're not anywhere near where you're going to be, but they may know somebody else. So it's all interconnected, which is really nice.
Great.
Awesome. So should I tie it up with our last question?
Let's do
Sure.
it.
Okay. So this is my favorite question. If you had one piece of advice to give, and only one, to give to a current chiropractic student, what would it be?
That's a hard one. Definitely take it day by day. Jump through the hoops that are flaming. You just have to do it. I mean, it's worth it in the end. I never would have, if anybody had told me what I was going to have to endure as a chiropractic student, I would never have done it, to be honest with you. And I had major passion for chiropractic before I even went in. But jumping through those hoops, learning what you need to do, you're going to come out just fine.
Good advice,
Awesome.
especially in dark times.
Yeah.
Well, are we wrapping it up? I think we covered a lot of ground.
I think so too. Why don't you take us home, John?
All right. Well, Laura, thank you very much. We really appreciate your time. You gave some great information and a different perspective than we've had up to date. So I think that was really great that you were able to share that with us and with all the students and young doctors who are going to listen to this. So thank you very much.
Oh, you're welcome. It's always nice to be asked to do something like this. And you know, and students really need, you know, they need some help. They need a guiding hand, and they need somebody to light that fire under them. So I'm here for it.
Awesome.
Awesome. Laura, if we do have students that wanted to contact you or had any questions for you, where would be a good place for them to reach you?
Actually, probably email's the best. Honestly, because that way I can address it, you know, as the day, you know, I have really weird hours, you know, trying to balance home life and everything. So email, do you guys want that now? Or are you going to?
I'll throw it in at the end of the whole presentation. So that way the students can look at it, write it down and have it. Okay.
And it's probably best if they put in the subject line something, you know, something catchy so that I
Okay.
read
So you
it,
actually
not
look at
staff.
it.
I mean, I don't care if they read it, but that way I can respond to it. So maybe, you know, have something, yeah, per the podcast, or I'm a
Okay.
student, don't delete me. I don't know.
Right. Mythical creatures.
Okay. Yeah.
All right, great.
Nice.
We will do that. Thank you again.
All right. Thanks, y'all.
Awesome. Thank you, Laura.
All right.
right.
Have a good day.
You too.